Hi guys, welcome to our book club. Today will be the fifth and the last session in this express reading adventure. We just finished Inside, Why We Are Not as Self-Aware as We Think, and How Seeing Ourselves Clearly Help Us Succeed at Work and in Life. A book written by Tasha Eurich. This book will cover the fourth and the last part of the book, which are chapters number 9 and 10. So without anything else to say, let's just start. Bridges hand in hand. Welcome back guys. As I told you in the introduction of this video, today we will cover the fourth and the last part of this book, which are chapters number 9 and 10. But before doing so, let's just remember what happened previously. So remember that this book is about learning a little bit about ourselves. So that's why in previous chapters, we just learned about the 7 pillars, which are some questions that let us know our values, our passions, the place where we are the happiest, etc. Later on, we just learn about the obstacles that don't let us reach that level of self-awareness. For example, being blind by emotions or being blind by knowledge. And later on, we just learn about the myths and truths of some of the tools that we use currently in order to achieve self-awareness. For example, journaling, meditation, or therapy. That if we don't do it in the right way, probably they won't help us and they may cause a little bit more harm than necessary. And finally, in the last video, we just learned about feedback. How to receive feedback, what to do with the feedback that we receive, how we can just know if it is the right feedback we need, or simply maybe the feedback was given by a person that envy us or really don't want us to improve. So right now we just have everything together and we will apply it a little bit in teamwork and in our office, in our jobs. So let's just start with chapter number 9, and as you may see, I'm already sharing my screen. We have that this is the fourth and the last part of the book that is called The Bigger Picture, and then we have chapter number 9, which is called How Leaders Build Self-Aware Teams and Organizations. As always, we have a quote, and this one says, "The truth is incontrovertible, malice may attack it, ignore may deride it, but in the end, there it is." So that means that it doesn't matter what you do with truth, like for example, if you attack it, or if you try to hide it, or if you try not to mention it, truth is always there. So we start our chapter again with an anecdote. This time it's about Mike. Mike, it says Mike, it's a brilliant and talented aeronautical engineer. And he was the first employee of this 25 years old manager. And well, this new manager wanted to do an excellent job, so all the time he was sending emails and he wanted to check everything, until one day that Mike said no more. So he is just about to quit, and then we have this that it says, but before his boss could even finish asking the question, Mike shouted, "No, I have to get away from you," and left abruptly. So my management career sure doesn't seem to be off to a very good start, the rejected leader realized as he stared helplessly out of the window. So this new manager was Alan Mulally, and he was very happy to receive this feedback in his early time as a manager, at the beginning of his career, because he says that this is a gem. So let's just read this part. It says, "A gem," he explained, "it's a learning that enables us to reevaluate what we are doing." And the gem he received from Mike that day was that it was wrong to try to make employees on his own image. That as a leader, his role wasn't to control their every move, but instead to help connect them with the bigger picture, to give them the right tools and to provide them the space to make mistakes but still hold them accountable. So we have that Alan Mulally, who is a very important character if you are a little bit into car companies. He is very important because Before he started to work at Ford, he was doing some turnarounds in some companies. He was very approachable to his employees, so all the companies he managed, they have good results. So that's why it says here that like in 2006, Ford was about to go bankruptcy, out of the business. They were really in red numbers. So the company was tried, was, the company was in a very, very bad place. So the grandchild of the owner, of the CEO, of the, like the founder, he tried to save the company, but even if he was self-aware and he tried to do his best, he couldn't. So it was, let's just check, let's just change page. It was in July of 2006, Bill Ford announced to the board that he wasn't, up to the challenge of fixing it. This company means a lot to me. I have a lot tied up in it, but the one thing I don't, it's my ego. Help me find a solution. So we have here, 60 years old Alan Mullally. So, 30 years after, Mike gave him that gem, that feedback, he was working in an airplane company. So he changed and he started to work at Ford. And when he arrived, he really knew that it was a big challenge. But with all the experience and all these self awareness that he has, he changed everything. So what he did it was that all the company was in troubles, but nobody wanted to share what was the problem or what were the problems. So what Mullally did it was that he organized weekly some meetings with the executives of every department. He wanted, he wanted them to share the problems in front of everybody. So that's, how they can help them in order to resolve. And well, at the beginning, nobody wanted to participate. And what he did, it was like, okay, if we have a problem, it's red. If we are doing something in order to resolve it, it's yellow. And when it is completely fixed, it's green. So he noticed that in every meeting, everything was, green. Nobody was commenting the problems they have. So it was until one time, obviously, because everybody thought that they will have consequences, they will suffer the consequences of not having, the job on time or well done, etc. So they thought that, they were scared about the consequences. So it was until one day, let's just go to that part. Here we have, to ensure that everybody knew the plans, the status of the plan, and the reality of challenges the company was facing. That's why he created the business process review. So those were the meetings that he was doing. And he says that at the beginning nobody wanted to participate. It says, although earliest BPRs took as many as 7 hours, by October the team had settled into a rhythm. Unfortunately, however, the process still left something to be desired. Despite the fact that the company was at the risk of extinction, every chart that every executive presented in every meeting was green. So nobody wanted to participate. However, we have the first guy. Let me just, find his name. I think it's Mark Fields. And they have a problem. They have a problem with the cars. Like, they didn't have the right piece to finish them. So that's why they needed to delay the release. And even if he didn't want to share this information with everybody, he says, like, well, somebody has to be the first one. So if I need to suffer the consequences, I will, but also I will not if this CEO is playing with us, or what are really his intentions. So there was, a meeting, And he finally raised his hand and he says like, we have a problem. Let me just find that part. Um it says, well then, no, this is not. It says, that week's the BPR began as it always, oh, just 1 second. Oh no, just here. Nope. What is it? Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. Okay, so it says, that week's BPR began as it always did. His colleagues presented their slides, and as usual, it was veritable, oh, 1 second, veritable forest of green. Everything was green. Then it was Phil's turn, as Mullally recalls. Up came the red slide. So there was a red dot, and then boom, it's an onomatopoeia that says like boom. No, something happened, something changed. The environment, the air of the room was a little bit heavy, and it says a little bit itchy. And well, he says like, oh, we have a problem. And everybody, like was expecting the Mullally's reaction, but what he did, it was just to clap and said like, thank you so much for being so brave. So team, what are we going to do in order to help him? So everybody, like we're throwing ideas, and at the end, that meeting just finished. So in the next meeting, Mullally's noticed that everything was green again, but the rest of the executives noticed that like Fields, that he was the first person to raise his hand, wasn't fired. He didn't he was still working there, and more than that, he was just next to Mullally. So in that meeting, Mullally demonstrated that really they didn't, or they won't have consequences, and what he wanted to achieve with this method, it was, like everybody knows where we are, and everybody is working in order to fix all the troubles because we are a team. So what he did with that, it was demonstrate that there won't be consequences for telling the truth. So he continued doing it, and at the end it says that by 2009, in the midst of the biggest economic crisis since the Great Depression, Ford was back in the black, so they weren't in red numbers anymore. And it was the only one of the big three American car makers who didn't take a cent of taxpayers' bailout money. By 2011, their profit had swelled to more than 20 billion, sorry. It was their second most profitable year in history. So it happened that he started to work in 2006, and he worked every day, he worked all the time. He was, like the most important part is that everybody knows the plan. What are the objectives? What is the process? And he was, like giving feedback all the time, so everybody were aware about what was happening. So he finally, like turned around the company, and well, right now Ford continues working. So we have that happened, and it says here, if individually self-aware means understanding who you are and how others see you, a self-aware team commits to that same understanding at the collective level. More specifically, there are 5 things that self-aware teams regularly assess and address. I call them the 5 cornerstones of collective insight. So that means, like the pillars. That means, first of all, objectives. Second, progress. The third is the process they are employing to achieve their objectives. 4 is the assumptions. And finally, the individual contributions. So we will, review those. And then it says that the 5 cornerstones of collective insight can immediately be difficult to achieve. Not only does the mom effect, remember that we don't want to give feedback because we think that may hurt the other person, effect make people reluctant to share this information. They often see individual feedback as a nice to have rather than an essential ingredient for success. Yet, though leaders should take their team's tentativeness to tell the truth seriously, they needn't be disheartened by it. So let's just continue, and it says there are three building blocks that must be in place for a leader to drive a self-aware team. First, if the team doesn't have a leader who models the way, the process will see as insincere or even dangerous. So that means that when we don't have a good leader to guide us, it doesn't matter if everybody in the team is self-aware. If we don't have a good leader, it doesn't work. Second, it says, if there isn't the psychological safety to tell the truth, the change of candidate feedback is almost zero. So in order to give feedback, we don't need to be scared or fear about the consequences. So if we fear the consequences, that doesn't work. We need to be in a safe place to share feedback. And it says that we also need an ongoing process. So that means that constantly, like receive feedback, give feedback, and again, what can you change? What can we change? So it says that at the end, in other words, if a team doesn't know where it's headed, they are missing the because of self-awareness. Yeah, we always have to have an objective. Okay, so we need to change this or that. Why? So we need the because. And, like we will review a little bit what are the five cornerstones. So we have a leader who models the way. And as a lot of examples, we have the story of this guy. His name is Doc Sottles, and he was working in an oil platform in the middle of the North Sea. So he will be the not the CEO, but like the general manager of the platform. So as soon as this guy, as Doc, realized that he would be in a very close environment, he realized that it would be an excellent and difficult challenge to overcome. So he says that as a leader, everybody is looking at you all the time. They are looking at your actions, who do you place with, who do you talk with, how do you talk to your employees or your coworkers. So he tried, and he was very conscious that he needed to do an excellent job. So he was, building a good relation with everybody, even if it was difficult. He was being honest and respectful and more. So when finally there was a crisis, when I think it's like a tube, like a pipe, just it was a leak of oil, and it just was in the Gulf of Mexico. So he knew that it has um, an excellent or a difficult challenge to overcome, because he was not just in front of their employees but everybody. So he assumed the challenge. He told everybody how was the situation, and finally, some years later on, they finally finished with the lake and they overcome the challenge. So what the author is trying to tell us here is that when you know what to do and you are guiding your guys to those objectives, meanwhile you are very honest and you share the situation and more, so your employees will just work with you, not against you. So that is what happened. And here we have that what it says, that there was a leak. Let me just read that part. It says, many years later, this lesson would help Soros manage an absolutely unthinkable crisis. On April 20th, 2010, the crew of the Deepwater Horizon, an oil rig located in the Gulf of Mexico, just off the coast of Louisiana, was settling in for the evening. So earlier that day, officials and workers had gathered to celebrate 7 years of operations without a single injury. And then there was a boom, it says. Then came the massive explosion that would ultimately kill 11 people, injure 17, and 4.9 million barrels of crude oil into the Gulf of Mexico. And if I'm not mistaken, I remember hearing about that leak some years ago. So we have, here this guy, he says by September 19, they managed to seal it completely. The lesson is that no matter what challenges you are facing, self aware teams must begin with a self aware leader who models the way. So always we need somebody that guides us. So it says, at the most basic level, as Doug Sutcliffe and Alan Mullally have shown us, a leader must communicate her principles and act in accordance with them. Psychology often refers to this constellation of behaviors as authentic leadership. So we have that the first cornerstone is guiding with example. Then, it just, when a leader is authentic, team members learn that it's not a joke. It's not just okay, but expected to honestly reflect. And later on we have the leader feedback process. So we have here Jamie, and Jamie says that the president of a hospitality and property management company. And they were, self-aware, the team was doing great. But, at some point, Jamie noticed that there was something he didn't know about. Like something was happening and nobody wanted to tell him. So they hired the author in order to review and fix this. And what they did, it was a feedback session. So, Tasha, the author, just organized a meeting with the employees, and they said, I call it the leader feedback process. So let's just, read here. So on a stifling summer day, a few months after our first meeting, Jamie, his team, and I gathered in a mercifully air-conditioned meeting room at the local country club. Thank you all for making the time to be here. We have one goal, to become a better team. And I'm about first. Over the next 3 hours, you will have the chance to give me feedback about my first year on the job. The ground rules are simple. No comment is out of bounds and everybody participates. And, Tasha put not some limits, but, she was a little bit more punctual about what to do. So we have some questions that the employees needed to answer. And, after some minutes, they were ready to share this with Jamie. And the author, Tasha, just told Jamie before entering to the room, hey, take it easy. Remember that this is an activity, and in order to do this a little bit more, easier, what if you, as soon as you arrive, you let them know about you? So Jamie started, the feedback session, telling his team about his childhood, his background, etc., etc., and then they start sharing the feedback. And he was with, some questions. It says, next, Jamie responded to their feedback one question at a time. For some comments, a simply acknowledgement was sufficient. Yes, I do have insanely high expectation. I am glad you think we are headed in the right direction, even if this first year hasn't been easy. And sometimes it requires, a little bit more context and more. So at the end, everything was better than expected. And later on, Jamie says that his team was doing, better after that feedback session. And even if sometimes he was taking those old habits, his team was there in order to push him, to remind him that he didn't need to go back to the old habits. So at the end, they just well, let's just read this. They were talking more openly about real substantive issues, and though some have occasionally slipped into their old habits, they were more engaged and collaborative than they have ever been. Not coincidentally, less than 1 year later, the company's revenue had jumped more than 20%. So what they did, it was, okay, I'm receiving feedback, but I am doing something with that feedback. It's not like I hear it and then I forget it. No. So that is also another cornerstone. So we have here the second one, and the second one, it's about having a safe place to share feedback. And we have here that they are talking about medical errors. So this is an experiment and study and research where they are just asking in a lot of hospitals why some nurses they have mistakes. So what they realize is that it says Edmondson, the person who is doing the research, followed a hospital's units team into urban teaching hospitals over the course of 6 months. At first, she was puzzled to find that the teams with better unit performance, quality of care, collaboration, efficiency, leadership, etc., reported more errors. But as she examined the data, further she discovered the reason for these surprising findings. So what she discovered is that, like in good hospitals where they were doing something about it, they feel safe in order to say, I made a mistake. And what happened in other hospitals is that they didn't have this secure place, so they prefer not to share the feedback. So what she discovered is that some people prefer just, like to be quiet in order not to receive the consequences. So what the author is trying to tell us is that in order to grow a self-aware team, you have to have a safe place so they can share feedback without fearing the consequences. So, like we have later on another hospital, another, like clinic, and they are not fighting, but, like the competence, they want to continue be better. So meanwhile, the competence is improving their installations and the services and luxury rooms, and moreover, what this clinic did, it was just doing the normal things, like taking care of the patients, like being more approachable to patients, to listen to them, etc., etc. So that made that all the public felt secure, so they were attending to that clinic. So here it says that it should come as no surprise that the first steps for leaders wanting to cultivate psychological safety in their team is to work on building trust. But though it's important, trust alone isn't sufficient for psychological safety. More than merely trusting that the team members have one another's best interests at heart, psychological safe teams go a step further to show each other respect, sensitive, and caring. And to do this, they have to see one another as real human. Begins with weaknesses and flaws. In fact, Google's research program found that the single most powerful contributor to psychological safety was vulnerability, or willingness to openly admit our failings. So, you as a leader, you have, like as we saw, guide with example. So when you said, I made a mistake, you have to openly accept that you made a mistake. So the rest of your team will start trusting you and will like be open to accept their failings. Later on, I might just remember if it is here. Oh, this is the part that I told you, like it says, um, baby hospital. Years ago, I was asked to help a leadership team that oversaw women and children services at a prominent hospital with their strategic planning process. Their newly promoted director, Tracy, along with her four nurse managers, had been tasked with keeping the department competitive because the facility was recognized as the city's baby hospital. Many people, including countless celebrities, travel from all around the country to deliver there. But in recent years, local competitors had stepped up their game, offering them unheard of amenities like luxury suites, personal chefs, and sparkling new facilities. Tracy's team had to keep up not just by ensuring compassionate and world class medical care, but by offering the kind of top notch service found in a five-star hotel. So, like in order just to like improve the building, they improve the service. So, like here it says that at the end, in order to have that, you have to create clear norms. So in the hospital, they just, like we have the norms that is no gossip, always go to the person. Then we have business is business, assume the best, and practice forgiveness. So when we have the rules and we have a safe place to share feedback and to receive feedback, so we will be more self-aware as a team. So we have the third cornerstone, and this ongoing commitment and process to stay self-aware. And here we have like the office of Pixar. And let's just read this part. It says the year was 2013 or 2013, and despite a series of record breaking box office hits, Pixar was experiencing a frustrating sense of inertia. On top of surging production costs, Catmull, like the CEO at the time from Pixar, and his team had noticed a subtle but worrisome trend, especially for Catmull, for whom a core tenet is what he calls living by being self-aware. And what he did it was that like let's just read what he did, because like he shared the information with all his employees, and since all the employees were aware, nobody was leaking information. So let's just read that part. It says, oh yeah, exactly. Like what he did, it was the notes day. So let's just read, like what was that? So he says that when they were in troubles, and obviously he started with this culture of being open and to receive feedback and give feedback, and moreover at the beginning everybody is close, everybody fears the consequences, everybody is uncertain about what could happen with them if they open their mouths. So what he did, it was like, okay, let's just start with the notes day. So it says, it was definitely a valuable exercise, he stated, but a few big things slipped through the cracks. He explained that a few months after Notes Day, they were having a major meltdown with one of their films. Both their traditional channels and their and the back channels for feedback to leaders had failed, to the point where the film was in danger of not being made. Catmull paused as I connected the dots. So these issues were on the notes day. I asked, furrowing my brows, like this. Catmull nodded, and everyone knew they were there. Yeah. So nobody says anything in that day where everybody were sharing, like feedback, call it notes day. And it was like an anonymous feedback. So at the end, he says like, okay, nobody wants to share feedback. So what he did is that he designated a peer pirate. So what he did is that in every team, he put a person in charge of receiving all the feedback, and this person, the peer pirate, was in charge of sharing the feedback with the executives. So that's how they well, first of all, like Catmull assured that nobody will suffer consequences. So everybody, needed to be opened and give feedback and the information of all problems they may see. So they assure that these peer parents won't suffer the consequences. So little by little, like people started to share feedback with them in a more open way, and that's how like it says. Catmull explained that in the days of real pirates, the crew will elect one of their peers to take issues and complaints to the captain with the agreement that he wouldn't be killed for what he said. So that, like work, and it says Pixar's approach is just one of the examples of how leaders can instill an ongoing process and therefore a culture of awareness. So we have here that since Catmull started with that method, nobody leaked any information about the movies or about the company, and that everybody was respecting the company, the rules, and moreover. So later on, we have another example. Well, it says the Candor Challenge, a process I have refined over many years to instill ongoing self-awareness in teams. So this is another CEO, and his name is Bridgewaters. So let's just see what he did. It says at Bridgewater's, employees are encouraged to call out unproductive behavior, and criticizing others behind their backs is a fightable offense. All conversations, unless they are personal or proprietary, are tape recorded and accessible to anybody, anyone in the company. Bridgewater has even invested in technology to support the free flow of feedback, using company issued iPads. Employee publicly records problems and failures in an issues log. So what he did, it was okay, gossiping and talking about somebody at their backs, it's forbidden. You can be fired. So he was recording them, and what he did with that, it was, I know this is extreme, but I like it. And that helps everybody, that if you have something to tell somebody, just like confront them, face to them. Say that thing face to face. So we have that is the Candor Challenge. And here, it says the commitment to ongoing team self-awareness in action, the Candor Challenge. So we have here, what is it? Just one second. Okay, so it says, the Candor Challenge takes place over a period of months or years, but most notably begins with a team feedback exchange, in which every team member gets the chance to give their peers feedback on their strengths, their weaknesses, and what they can do to increase their contribution to the team's success. And if that isn't intimidating enough, each team member delivers that feedback in front of the entire team. To lead the exercise, leaders can enlist an outside facilitator. In John's case, it was me. So we have here that, like everybody sharing feedback face to face. That is the Candor Challenge. So we have here that, they have 20 minutes to prepare it, and they have to prepare feedback. And it says, you have to give feedback in 30 seconds, but avoid generalities, like put some examples. So it says, what behavior behaviorally does this person do that most contributes to our success? If this person could change one behavior to be more successful, what would it be? And what behavior do I need from this person to help me be more successful? So we have that. Remember, it was like a meeting where everybody was about to share feedback about everybody, but they needed to be direct and concise. So they have 30 seconds to answer the questions. These are the questions. And then it says that the feedback rules. No pushbacks or defensiveness. Be curious and remember that perception is reality. Take notes and ask questions only for clarification. Be open minded and assume good intentions. Thank you. No. Thank you, team members. Giving feedback isn't easy. And also, like those are receiving the feedback, but for giving feedback, it's avoid generalities. You never. Say some examples. So focus on the behavior rather than the person. Don't give your interpretations of others' behavior, just the behavior itself. Provide examples. So in order just to say like, oh, you always do this and I don't like it, you have to say, remember that meeting when I was about to say something and you interrupt me 3 times? That's a behavior I don't like it, or you need to change because that affects me in my process of working and I don't like. So that is receiving, and everything has to be in 30 seconds. So it says all that was left to agree on the plan to keep the process going, something I call accountability conversations. The team decided to circle back monthly and devote 3 or so minutes to a discussion. Each person would provide an update on what they were doing to make good on their commitment. So even if they close this meeting, that exercise, they continue doing it. Probably not every week, but monthly. So what it did is that, like help the team to be more like united and also, like to work towards the same goals. So we have here that it says, oh, well, like at the end, we have a lot of resources. For example, it says you can download a workbook to help you do it at, and we have the link, we have the address, and it says that everything is pretty much practice. You need to put this in practice and learn how people react and still guide with example as we just saw before. Then it says from self-aware teams to self-aware organizations. And we have here George Eastman was tinkering an anagram set trying to conjure a name for his company. And his company was Kodak. So what happened with Kodak, I'm pretty sure you know the story of this company. It was, like 1888. And George Eastman, he received feedback not just about him, but about the company. That he could do something because, like the digital cameras were just arriving to the market. But what he did, it was like, come on, like my company is number one. It will be always number one. So Kodak didn't do anything with the feedback they received. So at the end, we know that Kodak just, like ran out of business. We have here that it says, if team self-awareness means confronting reality by fostering candor among team members, organizational self-awareness means confronting market realities by actively seeking feedback from all stakeholders: employees, unions, customers, shareholders, suppliers, communities, legislators, and keeping those stakeholders informed about how the company is adapting to serve their changing needs. And, it says here, Alan Mulally calls this awareness for everybody. But paradoxically, as we saw with Kodak, it's not always that organizations don't have the information. but rather that they can't or won't accept it. So, like at the end, as I told you, Kodak had the information to do something, maybe in order to continue like being one of the most important companies, but they thought that, like the manual cameras and everything would just last forever, so they didn't do anything about it. And obviously, they just went out of business. So we have just to finish the chapter that says, by opening up the channels of communication, Ford had fundamentally transformed its relationship with employees. By the time Mullally retired in 2014, morale was at all-time high of 87%. For comparison, the average engagement level in the United States that year was 31.5%. Thankfully, his successor was committed to sustaining a culture of awareness for everybody. A culture where leaders model the way, where it felt safe to share the truth, and where a rigorous ongoing process supported the free flow of feedback throughout the organization. But wait, who was Alan Mullally's successor? You guessed it was none other than Mark Fields. So we have that is the ending of chapter number 9. So we start with the last chapter of the book, and this is surviving and thriving in a delusional world. Someone told me I was delusional. I almost fell off my unicorn. So in this chapter, we will just learn that sometimes we have to deal with people that don't want to change, or simply they don't know they need to change. So here the author will give us some tips how to deal with them. So we just start, and we start with, let's just see where is it. Well, we have, like a story of the author. I don't remember exactly how it started, so just one second. Oh, we start, like with this, I don't remember, fable. And it says, like a tadpole is swimming in a pond. Oh, sorry. All of a sudden, a frog appears in the water next to him. Where did you come from? The tadpole inquires. Somewhere dry, replies the frog. What is dry? The tadpole asks. It's when there is no water, says the frog. What is water? The frog is speechless. Emphatically gesturing at the abundant substance surrounding the tadpole, he asks, Water? You mean, can you see it? No, but how can you not see it? It's all around you. So what the author is trying to tell us with this fable is just simply that sometimes people cannot see that they have to change something. So, like we are dealing in sometimes with those kind of people. But everybody sees that they are wrong, but they don't want to do anything about it. So that's why the author says that we have 3 types of this kind of people. So it says, in the workplace, delusional people aren't just annoying and frustrating. They can significantly hinder our performance. Scarcely being on a team with just one unaware person cuts the team chances of success in half. And where bosses have detrimental impact on their employees' job satisfaction, performance, and well-being. When reporters on the Washingtonian asked 30,500 employees in the Washington, D.C. area about their the worst boss ever, they were regaled with mind-boggling tales of bad behavior. And just a few examples, one manager who said, anything particularly stupid stand on their chair as punishment. Another added up the time people spent in the bathroom and deducted the corresponding number of vacation hours each pay period. But perhaps the most unbelievable example from an employee who tried to take a day off to attend his father's funeral, his boss responds, "We need you now. What difference does it make to him?" So we have here that sometimes we just face really bad bosses. And like it says, we have already heard the stories of so many ordinary people who have radically improved their own self awareness. So it must be at least possible to help the delusional become more self aware. But not everyone will want to change. You know what they say about leading a horse to water, right? You can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink. So we have that sometimes, we have three kind of people. So we have here that says, in the chapter, I will address this question with the goal of providing you a few actionable strategies for dealing with the three specific types of unaware people you may encounter in your life: the lost cause, the aware don't care, and the knowledgeable, and keep them from draining your energy, enthusiasm, and happiness. So we have here the three types. We would just start with the first one, that is simply a lost cause. So we have as an example, it says that Robert was happy in his new job as a development manager at a small IT security company, but there was one problem: Maria. Maria, like most unself aware people, seemed to inhabit her own reality. As the longtime manager of the company's support desk, she stubbornly clung to the mistaken assumption that her colleagues shared her opinion and disparaged them when they deigned to disagree with her. So what she did is that all the time in meetings, all the time in projects, she was talking about herself all the time. And not just that, but she was always talking about her background and how good she was for the job. And all the time she was like being selfish. And also, even if some people were like, hey, probably you need to change, she was like, okay, probably just one person that thinks that about me. I don't think that. So they may be wrong. Like Robert found a time when he was about to give her feedback, but he stopped in the middle of the job because he realized that simply she wasn't able to change. So what he did, it was like, okay, maybe what I need to do is simply change my perspective. So we have here that, it says, when Robert finished recording his feedback, he felt oddly optimistic. She's really not a mean person, he decided. She just probably has no idea how much her behavior is damaging our team. So as I told you, he finally found the opportunity to share or to speak about that elephant in the room. And at the end, he just stopped because he thought like Maria is just a lost cause. So it was one time when Maria just brought her kid to the office, and Robert saw that she was a good mother. She was, like doing the best for her kid. So a tip that the author gave us in order to deal with this kind of people is just to pay attention to the good things. So not to the negative, but try, like to change and said like, well, she's not really all the time like this. I saw her with her kid and she's really a good mother. So probably, I will just keep with that image and not with the image of her being very, very selfish. So it says that the first people we probably will encounter in our lives is the lost cause. So it says, lost cause clinch their delusion with a righteous, indignant, and unshakable zeal, because they can or won't consider other option besides their own, Anyone who attempts to shine a light on their less desirable characteristics will get the proverbial flashlight thwack out of their hand because they had already seen themselves as pretty close to perfect. They are rarely, if ever, willing to entertain the notion that they may have room to improve. So we have, like the first person. And then we have that, like we need to change our mindset. So it says, he challenged himself to adopt the mindset of compassion without judgment. So that would be, like the first step, the first um, tip that the author is giving us in order to deal with these lost causes. Then it says, if Maria said something antagonist to him, for example, rather than standing up to her and trying to make her see the error of her ways, he would simply imagine floating feet first and getting out of the rough waters as quickly as possible. So this is another tip. In this case, he reminds like when he was, let's just read this part so you will understand what I said. It says, imagine you are white water rafting. Your boat is calmly floating down a Pinterest river when all of a sudden you see a rough patch ahead. As you paddle through the rapids, you are abruptly thrown into the violent waters. Most people in this situation try to fight it, kicking and flailing to get back to the boat, trying to swim towards the shore, futilely clinging to a slippery rock. But those strategies are actually more likely to kill us than save us. Unless we battle the current, the sooner we will find ourselves in calm waters. Robert liked this metaphor. It reminded him that he was actually more in control than it seemed. If Maria said something antagonist to him, for example, rather than standing up to her or trying to make her see the error of her ways, he would simply imagine floating feet first and getting out of the rough waters as quickly as possible. When dealing with a delusional person like this, it's easy to grade him or her as simply as a bad person. But what if we challenge ourselves to name a few of their positive characteristics? So that is reframing. So as I told you, like one time he just broke his kid and he was really a good mother. So next time he encountered one of these situations with Maria, he was first, like compassion without judgment, trying to understand her. Then, if that wasn't possible, we have the floating feet first. So trying to get out of the situation as quickly and like as fast as possible. And then we have the reframing, like, okay, she's a bad person, she's very selfish. But in order to just pay attention to that, I will pay attention to the positive things she owns. So that's, like the three tips that we have in order to deal with the first kind of person we may find, that is the lost cause. Then it says, when a little self knowledge isn't enough. So we have here, let me just read if it is, it says Daniel, but let me read what's Daniel. Okay. Aware, don't care. So we have, like in this company, this guy, like Daniel, who was managing his office in a very strict way. He says that, okay, if you want to be an excellent boss, everybody needs to fear you. You can just control them through fear. Even though he was aware that that wasn't the right way of doing it, he says, like, I don't care. Like they do what I want. So if they are scared or they fear me, that's perfect. Because fear is an excellent tool. So here, like even if he knew about the things that he needed to change, he didn't care. So that's another person, another kind of person that we may found, like aware, don't care. So, in order to fight against these kind of people or bosses, it says, firstly, a laugh track. So, the author says that she, like in a situation, she thought about a program when something mean happened, there was, like a laugh track behind. So that seems that probably the comment, it wasn't so serious. And she applied that in her life. So every time, like she was in a bad situation, she imagined a laugh after the moment. So what she was trying to do with that, it was maybe removing that heavy environment and make that moment a little bit lighter. So by doing that, it didn't hurt so much. So then we have managing our, let's just, like these stories are proof that when it comes to delusional people who refuse to change, by managing our own reactions, we often have more control than we think. But unfortunately, changing our mindset is not always sufficient. There are times when we'll need to proactively assert ourselves and set boundaries, and there will be times, if else fails, when the only tool we have to our disposal is to remove ourselves from the situation. So, if changing the perspective, if the laugh track, if like the feet floating first don't work, simply, probably you don't need to be in that environment. So you have just to remove yourself from those toxic environments. So later on, we have, it says, like what they need were clear boundaries so they could both agree. So at the end, you can say, like, I don't like this treatment, and maybe, like by talking, that boss can change at least with you, but if not, just run. You don't have to be in that position. And then we have the third kind of people, that is the knowledgeable. So that people that they are able to change, they want to change, but they don't know how. Or simply they just need, like a push, a little push. So we have here, like, let's just check because we have an experience. It says, Lisa, let me just check because like there are so many stories that sometimes I forget names. But well, the thing is that we have Sophia and Emma. And Sophia and Emma, they are really good friends. Emma is the daughter of a guy who has built a company from zero. And then we have Sophia, who is a very self aware person, and that she is studying medicine. So we have that, like Emma's father, it's a surgeon. He's a doctor too. And that's why, like the three of them, they have like a good relationship. So one time, the family goes to vacation and they invite Sophia. So in the trip, what happened, they were just about to go ski. So one day before, Sophia says like, I'm a little bit scared. Like I don't want to go ski, but I don't know how to tell my father because he's always like worried about money and he's always telling me that I'm an expensive person, etc., etc. So I'm a little bit scared. And well, Emma says like, come on, it's your father. Like you can tell him whatever you want. So what she did, it was that Sophia told his father one day before going ski, like, hey, what if I don't go ski? What if I do something else? And his father says, like, whatever you want. That's it. But the next day, in the morning, when they were just finishing breakfast, they just found another person. And Sophia's father was like, oh, well, this person asked Sophia's father, like, hey, what are you going to do now? And Sophia's father says, like, well. We, like pointing and Sophia's, his mother, and him, like, we are going to ski. I don't know about Emma because, like, she said that she doesn't want to ski. She's very scared of it. And how come she just told me this now? I just pay, so I waste money on that. And what Sophia said, well, she didn't say anything, but she was so upset that she just ran away. And the situation finished there. But Emma, sorry, Emma just ran away, but the situation was, like it says, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about what she had witnessed. And she was like, do I need to tell him? No. But what if? She was meditating all the situations because at the end, she was, like an external person. Like, how come she will be involved in some uh, family issues? So at the end, she says, like, well, I can help my friend by, like doing or by giving him this kind of feedback. So everything is aligned. And Emma's father and Sophia, finally, they are sharing breakfast. And, well, Emma found the right situation, the right moment to start talking about what happened with Emma. And she wasn't direct. She was like, okay, what do you think she was upset for? And do you think that her reaction was too much? Why? What do you think Emma was, like feeling at that time? So, with all those questions, Emma's father realized that probably he did something wrong, but he didn't know what. So at the end, Sophia just pushed him a little bit, and he says, like, don't you think Emma got a little bit upset because you were talking about the money? And Emma's father just realized at that moment that probably he was pushing his daughter too much because he had a very rough, a very difficult childhood. So he didn't want his daughter to be the same, to live the same, and that's why he was very pushy with her. So at the end, he just realized that he needed to change that. And, well, later on in a conversation with Emma, they just, talk a little bit about that. And since then, even if he was, like being pushy with Emma, Emma was a little bit open to say or to comment to his father, like, hey, you are doing this and I don't like it. You are making me feel in that way. And also, they grow a better relationship. So we have this third kind of people that is the knowledgeable, and it's people who want to change, but they really don't know how to change, or simply they haven't realized that they have to change. So as soon as they just see that, they say, like, oh, okay, so I need to do this. And that's why like we have these kind of people, the ones that they just need to a little push. So we have, like, confront with compassion at the end. And it says that here, the lifelong quest and the speckle axe. So an axe, it's a tool, like un hacha. And here we have let's see. Oh, yes, like we have another example of a blacksmith, and he is, like working in a blade. So let's just read this part because it's interesting. So it says, a man went to purchase a hand forged axe from a blacksmith. I fixed up its sturdy wooden handle, as the centuries old story goes, was an iron head covered in opaque gray carbon, save for the blade where the blacksmith had sharpened off the soot to reveal the smooth silver underneath. The man liked the look of the blade so much that he asked the blacksmith to sand the entire head to match. The blacksmith agreed, but only if the man would help him power the sharpening wheel. So it's like, okay, I can do it. I can have all these shiny, but you have to help me keep the fire, like on. So the guy was like, okay. And at the beginning, he was doing it, he was doing it, he was doing it, but he felt so tired. And it's just like, oh no, like this guy is taking forever. So just, like, let it like that. Like, give me the axe. Don't do anything. Like that. The way you have it, it's perfect. So give it to me. So it says, but the fact that we are never truly finished becomes self-aware. Oh, sorry. But the fact that we are never truly finished becoming self-aware is also what makes the journey so exciting. No matter how much insight we have achieved, there's always more to be gained. Few understand this better than our unicorns, who see self awareness as a state of being that they consistently prioritize. And for the rest of us, no matter how self aware we start out, we can all work to continuously broaden and deepen our insight throughout the course of our lives. As we go about that process, we will learn things that surprise us, gratify us, and challenge us. And with each new insight will come the inevitable questions of now what? At the beginning of this book, I call self awareness the meta skill of the 21st century. That's it. It's a necessary but not sufficient condition for a life well lived. Another way of saying this is that insight is pointless if we don't put it to use. Imagine how differently things would have turned out if George Washington hadn't carved his pride, restrained his fiery emotions, and learned to think before he acted. Remember that at the beginning of the book, we have that George Washington was guiding, like some soldiers to the battle, and even if he lost a lot of people, he thought that he won. So that's, like why we have, like to be self aware. And at the same time, we have to do something in order to continue like growing. So later on, that we have a way, like an exercise, in order to continue learning about ourselves, and the author called it the 7-day insight challenge. We have a lot of resources. We have here the official page, and we have, like some quizzes, but we have here that it's a challenge. So the first day we have to it says select your self-awareness spheres. So the spheres, it will be, like the important aspects of our lives. It says work, school, parenting, marriage, friends, community, etc. Then, like it says, oh, you have to study the 7 pillars. Remember that at the beginning of the book, we just talk about them, and they are some questions in order to know ourselves a little bit better. For example, what are our values, or what are our passions? What is the best place for us to bloom? So we have a series of questions, and then we have also the appendixes that we have at the end of the book. You will see where we can, like know more about that. Then it says explore your barriers. So we have here that, like the obstacles that we were just talking about in chapters, I think it was 5 and 6. And it says that we can be, like blind by knowledge, emotion blindness, behavior blindness, the call of self, the feel good effect, and the selfie syndrome. So it says that we need to pay attention to some behaviors. For example, when you are just about to post a picture on your social media, what is the reason behind? Why are you doing that? So it says that we can start asking us that kind of question in specific situations, so we can know what kind of obstacles don't let us grow. Then we have boost your internal self awareness. And it says that choose one of the internal self awareness tool below to experiment with today. So, like we have here some exercises, the same here. So we continue with the exercises, and at the end, the author says that, let's just read the end of the book. It says, if this book has convinced you of anything, I hope it's that self-awareness isn't just for unicorns. Truly, we are capable of gaining insight and reaping the results rewards of recognizing our self limiting behaviors and making better choices, of knowing what's most important to us and we are and how we are seen, and can be a bumpy one, a very difficult journey. But like it can be difficult, painful, and slow. It can make us feel imperfect, weak, and vulnerable. But this road is also paved with the greatest of opportunities. So we just finished the book with this. It says that I think we are like stars. Something happens to burst us open, but when we burst open and think we are dying, we are actually turning into a supernova. And then when we look at ourselves again, we see that we are suddenly more beautiful than we ever were before. So, like the author wants us to think that when we start a change, it's not like the ending. It's not like we are, um, like here, like we are doing something wrong. It's just simply that you are blooming in a different way. You are changing. You are like a supernova. That when you accept who you are, what you can change and when you can't, when you know your place and how your behaviors affect other people. So maybe you will transform into a different person, but that doesn't mean that you are not you anymore. You continue being you, but probably a better version. So that's, like what the author wanted to teach us and show us throughout the book. So that is the end of chapter number 10. That is the end of the book. And then we have the appendixes where we have like this material that we can read and we can exercise with in order to know us a little bit more. So we have here a couple of questions so we can know what are our values. Then we have also some questions about in order to find out what are our passions, our aspirations, our ideal environment, our strengths and weaknesses. Then we have the impact we have on others. Then we have like unknowns. So we have a lot of material here in order, like to know our obstacles, in order to know us a little bit more. Like here, I don't know if you remember rumination, but it's when we keep with the same thought over and over and over and over. So here, like the author is giving us a lot of material that we can practice with in order to improve our self-awareness. So, well, as you may see, guys, this is just an exercise that, like everybody needs to do by themselves. And at the end, we have the acknowledgement, we have, like the notes where the author was taking this information. And as you may see, that is the end of the book. As I told you, I read this book in Spanish, and that is, like why I decided to share this book with you, because I thought that it was full of information that it can help us improve our lives. And since I read this book, what I have realized is that most of the times I have, for example, these rumination thoughts, and I try to control them. Also, it's a very difficult journey because sometimes you ask questions like, whoa, what are my passions? But you really don't know. So I think that always we need to be guided. And I found this book an excellent guidance in order to achieve a little bit more of self awareness. So I really hope that you enjoyed this book as much as I did. Thank you so much for reading it with me, and see you in the next reading adventure. Thank you so much. Bye.
We gather around and chat all day. New words to learn in every way. No fear of wrong, just give a try. We're flying high like birds in the sky. From A to Z we say hello. Each day we watch our language grow. Together we will break the ice. In Talk English we find paradise. Right now, let's talk in English, hear us loud. Breaking barriers, tearing down the clouds. Every word's a step we're taking now. In this club we'll make each other proud. Hey now, let's talk in English, hear us loud. Breaking barriers, tearing down the clouds. Every word's a step we're taking now. In this club we'll make each other proud. With laughter, jokes and stories told. In conversation, hearts unfold. We share, we learn, we understand. Building bridges hand in hand. No grammar rules can hold us still. We're climbing higher up the hill. Every sentence, every phrase. In Talk English, we like the blaze. In Talk English, we like the blaze. Hey now, let's talk in English, hear us loud. Breaking barriers, tearing down the clouds. Every word's a step we're taking now. In this club we'll make each other proud.